Okay. All right. First order of business is the chairperson, which I believe Norm is filling in for Courtney tonight.
All right. Can enough people hear me? Or should I use super outdoor voice? Okay, I get some thumbs up. Good. Um, yeah, Courtney asked me to cover her points, and I'm going to cover them in about the least sensible order possible. So we're going to bounce all around the agenda. I'm going to go by most discussion to least discussion. So we are going to start by talking about the wonderful winter schedule that is coming our way in 2027, which is a while away. However, it's close enough that we need to talk about whether bylaws need to be opened up. And the reason for that is that there's going to be a mini season in 2027 that's about a half a season, and then a full season starting in the summer. And we are going to need to have a plan for how elections would be conducted around this period and if we should be adjusting the elections process moving forward. And if that needs to be in place a year from now, we need to be planning now for if there will be um, to have bylaws on the books by then. And that process will take long enough. So I wanted to kind of open the floor a little bit to discuss um, opening bylaws and how that would timeline process, whether folks feel like it's necessary or if I'm blowing this out of the water, etc.
I think you need to have elections during off season, so I think they would have to move to June. Something this is January, does it change your opinion, like the mid season for this longer than off season? It doesn't. I think it should be. Makes sense to line up with. Whatever is done, this from last time, it was the bylaws, any changes have to be posted for 30 days for review. And it was what, 2 weeks, I think, for the voting. Last time it was by two-thirds of those that voted for it to be changed to judge them. It's super quick, but I think it would be good to always have an outline and paging, and then it's all problems. Super quick. Yeah. Is there a financial cost to run an election? We have a yearly membership for it, but I think with the membership that we have, it's the number of elections you can do is, I don't think they're going to, so like the number of ballots you can add. We could do a mini term for maybe something. No, because then that would, you have to write that into the bylaws. You can have the bylaws that go with plans. You can have them go into effect starting when the new season starts, yes. So we skip the election on the longer term, or would we have a shorter term? You'd be a shorter term. So we would have a winter election next year, and then some election 6 months in.
But this can all be debated later, but it seems like it would actually be better to just skip that winter and let somebody serve for 2 more months, 3 more months in the and just wait for the summer election, then to run one for 2 months term. Like I said, that can all be said later. Right now, I think we're trying to decide, is that something you want to pursue? I think the answer is yes.
It looks like Emily's got her hand up.
I just had some questions because I know that along with like the schedule of the timeline, that we also needed to kind of clean up some of the language in the bylaws. There's some conflicting sections, and then there's some repetitiveness. So I didn't know if like that was something that we felt like was important. If we should do it this time or wait.
I mean,
For
if,
clarification, when the most recent bylaws were gone through, we worked with a lawyer and a law firm who specializes in nonprofits, and everything, and bylaw writings. And so they went through and cleaned it up the best that they could, because best they could and what they knew to deal with based on the previous organizations they've dealt with.
Well, so I'll give an example of like one of the things that when it comes to people that have been appointed in like section 3.1.4, it says that they serve out the rest of the term. In section 4.2F, it says 1 year, and then again in 4.3, it says rest of the term. So it's kind of conflicting just in that piece. There's others that I found too, but I mean that's just, you know.
I lived doing that for a while. Appointed positions are different than vacancies that are filled. Like the
Yeah.
secretary is a appointed position, but an elected vacancy that's filled is different.
yeah, I don't think those first two are in conflict based on when I was reading them earlier. 3.1.4 specifically refers to directors, where 4.2F specifically refers to appointed officers. I don't think there's a conflict there between how the terms are handled. I think there's just perhaps some confusion about maybe the verbiage not being as clear as it could be, but I don't think they're technically in conflict.
Um,
And then I
But
think,
to your broader question, I think, yes, if we're gonna do a bylaw review, it should be a full bylaw review and not just whatever section number the schedule is.
right,
There are small things to be fixed, it should be fixed at the same time.
right.
That's
Well,
what,
then it says in the vacancies that an appointed successor term goes for the unexpired term. So
so I think what that one's referring to is if it's someone is appointed in a vacancy for a director role, it doesn't apply to the kind of 1 year as the additional ones, like the secretary, the different ones like that, that the appointed one fills out the term for the spot they're taking over or appointed to.
so if a director has a 2 year term, they're just elected, and then they decide they're not going to stay, and then there's an appointed new director. Or do they stay for 1 year, or do they stay for the rest of the 2 years?
So if there was a director that was elected for the 2 year term, and after 1 year, they say, hey, I'm done, I'm not gonna finish out my term. The rest of the board would appoint someone to finish out that 1 year term, and then that person that was appointed would have to run again, or would have to run for that spot in the next election cycle.
The bylaws don't this considered part of the like
I think
The
it
appointment-
specifies that it's not.
It is
Yeah,
not appointed because they weren't elected, they were appointed, so no.
So the other pain point that's been previously existing within the bylaws is the calendar as it pertains to elections. So when the last revisions were done and ratified, it was done and initiated around the MLS Cup berth. And so everything was geared around giving space in the event of a long playoff run. And I think the current board would say that there's a significant cost to having elections so close to the start of the season. And that holds true whether it's in starting the season in our traditional late February, early March, or in a shifted schedule. That there's in the current layout, there is not a ton of time for preseason planning for an incoming board, and that puts them behind the eight ball, and that's been a pain point that's been out there before this. And so I don't think that's the animating principle, but it's the one thing I don't think I've heard, albeit I'm on Zoom, so I'm not hearing all the conversations 100% clearly.
You know, you're right, that has not been brought up yet, but that is something that I think was worth discussing. Because there are at least a couple of roles that when they turn over and you only have 3 weeks until the start of the season, it makes it really challenging for all of the tasks that come with that role, as well as just trying to integrate into a board, especially for people that haven't been on it yet.
Strong expectation of the be a Christmas people.
That is one of the things, yes. So if it can be adjusted to move, for starters, another thing that we haven't brought up yet that is also a part of this discussion is I think just the general timing of elections uses a lot of engagement. And I think you have more interest if you started elections while the season was still going on. You know, that's a lot of work. But I think it's important. And I think you would have more participation in that rather than waiting until an off season when everybody's disappearing. So then that would allow you to also have more time for the new incoming board members to spend with the outgoing board members to get over the lay of the land and all of that kind of stuff before the season starts. So I think a couple of those shifts could really help in participation as well.
So the other thing that's going to be particularly challenging about any endeavor to open up the bylaws and to fix, kind of streamline this around a calendar shift is incomplete information. So the reason this is coming up now is because we will need time in order to address this and make it work moving forward. But also, we don't know 100% when the right time in the calendar will be for, moving forward for elections, right? We can kind of anticipate, but we don't know. And the mini season is a complicating factor here because you want something ahead of the mini season, but also you aren't going to know 100% how this lays out for a, a winter schedule until you've gone through it, right? So it's entirely possible that you go through a full process in 2026 and you make some adjustments and you go through it and then it still doesn't hit the mark because you didn't have enough information going in, and you're kind of hoping that MLS is forthcoming with those details once, if, assuming we start this process, that we get information when the work is being done. But that's a big unknown right now.
With regard to the date of the elections, it could possibly turn it into too big of a gray area, but is there an opportunity to look at, rather than setting a specific date, setting a specific time frame after the season ends for elections to begin? So whether it be, because right now I think it's the ballot has to be presented to the AGM by January 9th, according to the bylaws. Whereas you could set it like 4 weeks after the season ends, 6 weeks after the season ends, whatever it is, so that it then fluctuates with that time frame if we don't want it to begin during the season, like Brent suggested.
I do think basing it off of what is from the season is better, because I expect that in 2030, the MLS is gonna adjust slightly, but I don't know how, but I just expect they're gonna review and adjust in some way. And in the perfect world, we get the season this early, every time we base it off of minus days from the new season, but the also season.
trying to, when the private makes it so many weeks or whatever after the end of the season, you're gonna get too many variables from year to year, because, I mean, end of the season could be like this year where you're out in the first round, or if you're based on the end of season, we're talking end of regular season, end of MLS season, end of what season?
Yeah, I think this is, it's actually, really bad. Yeah.
Because we won't put on the trips as well. So people don't just fund them for just to go, but the benefit of the benefit of voting is. We just open elections on decision day. And then set the bylaws to deliver the results. Final match plus. So that way the length of the season, the length of the postseason is incorporated into when the voting period. Happens.
One thing the lawyers did caution us to was not being super specific in the bylaws, because then you pigeonhole yourself into having that same guideline year after year and potentially causing issues down the road. It's a try to be not vague but not specific, kind of somewhere in between.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, we could, I mean, larger discussion with a lot of local levels, but like. Elections open on decision day, that covers us for any changes in the schedule. And then. Not to be delivered no later than. 30 days past the final match of the season. That gives you flexibility, but also so that if you want to close them up, say, because that would fall on like Christmas, for example. You want to make the executive decision to close them up 2 weeks after the last match. Yourself the ability to set a hard deadline as a board, but also setting a hard deadline that wouldn't have to be delivered.
I think it's also worth thinking about, do you, in a this situation, do you start to decouple from AGM? Like, do you move AGM to a different point in the calendar so that you create more space for the election period? I mean, there's been talk from Brent about engagement. When's the right time in the calendar to capitalize on engagement? I think there's an argument right now that we're going to talk AGM tonight, and AGM comes at the zenith of engagement and interest. And so if we're trying to anticipate off seasons where we have less room to work with, do we move that to a mid-season event? Or, I'm just spitballing here. I'm trying to think of ways to future-proof this a bit, as best we can.
Just thinking, skipping over the mini season, thinking to the new schedule, like you could put AGM during that winter break and have it there, and kind of maybe have that be the time when people can announce their candidacy for whatever. That would give the individual from that mid-season break to the end of the season to kind of get their name out there, kind of not politic, but like promote themselves out there and everything, get their name out there, kind of let people get to know them, but rather than just reading a blurb online about them. That would give people what, that 2-3 month window to get to know the people that are running for the election, and then have like you said, have the election on decision day, then have it open for whatever period, and say, hey, just find some sense on.
I like that plan. I just picture all the public settings. Sometimes you're begging people to run for positions.
I mean, and it potentially could be that way now that you've got now that you've got kind of split, you're not turning over 9 people every time. Cool.
You could also help with the shadow. All of those candidates can then shadow that or that second half. Which might be a lot of first 20 different.
No, because then it could really, like, if someone says, hey, I want to do game day, but I've never been around, like you say, it gives that person the second half of the season to kind of be with it. And then you've always got that cure period or whatever, or the cure period as it stands now, to withdraw yourself or just say, hey, this isn't for me, I want to move to another
Especially
position.
match day, there's the two
Yep.
almost the same.
To know, kind of like that putting in the middle gives, like you said, gives people time to acclimate themselves, know each other, follow a board member around, kind of see what they're getting, what they'd be getting into if they're elected to the role, and then allows them to make a firm decision or kind of change their mind and move around if they want.
I like the concept of being able to give more time to this, but I also worry about if we're saying basically you're throwing your name out as a hypothetical, basically to mid-season AGM and then pulling it 3 months later. Do you end up with a space where you get to the cure period and a bunch of people have been like, wow, that's a lot of work, and then you don't have anyone running for stuff, but they put their name out there really early.
And there's nothing to say that the AGM has to be during that winter break. I'm just kind of throwing it out there to keep engagement going during that 8 week time frame. It could be towards the middle half of the second half of the season. Put it out there, just kind of shorten that window a bit. But yeah. I don't know. Just was trying to find ways for people to stay engaged during that 8 week break. Everything.
Yeah. Which is
No, I think it's absolutely worth considering. And the other thing to consider, I just occurring to me while we're talking about this is, of course, having some sort of event to re-engage the fan base going into the second half of the year might be necessary in a split, with a longer break. Essentially, you're going to have a mini Christmas coming out of that, if you think about it.
I'm in trouble pulling that, but I think right now AGM is tied to the voting period. I think it's like the last day of voting, something, the voting closes the day after, or something like that.
I think when we did it, voting opened.
Open
After
AGM.
AGM.
Yep, that's the thing.
There's a point in there still that says elections must be held at which is not.
Oh, right, we noticed that, and then we said it doesn't have to be held at AGM. Because we're doing it online now.
Yeah, like it comes
So
with
the
the
online,
online.
yeah, the online portion,
I mean, it
like,
does
kind
say
of
that,
covers like.
Like point one says elections must be held at.
You have the option, yes, you have the option to vote at AGM.
so that's another thing that we'll have to look at.
Yeah.
To change from, yeah.
All right. Do we have more questions on the bylaws portion? Or should I move on to the next of the 7 points?
I'd say in the interest of time, I can find them, yeah.
Okay.
We can get them out, yeah. I know they were right around the corner, they were near campus, so I definitely can get that contact info.
I think it'd be good to have one. Do we know if Paul has a meeting? Ability to assist with this, probably tomorrow.
Maybe don't, he may, I don't want to speak for him, I don't know if he would, but I don't know if
He
it's.
said he's worked with nonprofits on bylaws before.
Yeah.
But given that we are have bylaws and we're not looking to establish them. Yeah, that's just more time, right? Just this week.
Just like, hey, here's the changes we want to make compared to what we've got. How legalese, how do they work together?
Let's do it. Norm.
Norm, I think you're good to move on, but.
Yeah, I think that gives us a good.
All right. So the second point that I think needs the most discussion, and the one that I'm very happy that Ravi is here for, is talking about strategy for the World Cup year, particularly as it pertains to how we can support our supporters groups and how we should be talking about and planning for what our partners may ask of us during the World Cup in regards to watch parties, etc. It's something that we should really be planning ahead for. And so that's why it's on the off-season list. So I'll just open the floor up to discussion around that.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, hey, Robin.
Okay. So in the past, when we had, I think I can't recall the tournament. I think it was either the Gold Cup or it might have been CONCACAF. I forget the other tournament, but I know I was trying to work with AO Columbus to do away watch parties with them. But I know that AO Columbus always has their away watch parties at land grant. So so ultimately I say that just to kind of bring up that that there was an outreach, there was a potential opportunity or an evaluation of looking at of working together with AO Columbus, but seeing that they can only do a land grant, that we decided not to pursue that. But what we can do is similar to what I have done for the home and away watch party schedule. I can certainly put together a calendar or a spreadsheet within what I've already put together for the 2026 season for the World Cup and do an outreach for partners, and see like which ones who'd be interested in hosting an away watch party. I think with this one, and I haven't really thought too deeply on it. So if anyone else has suggestions, open to it, is really to kind of centralize it in areas where we could see like where you could have higher turnout and it would be accessible for a lot of people. So primarily, I'm thinking not just land grant, but Endeavor, um, Parsons North, Combustion, Seventh Son. I think I've already mentioned Seventh Son, but Seventh Son as well. Um, so that's just kind of the thought process I have on the top of my head. But essentially, just to kind of sum it up, I'm happy to create another spreadsheet for World Cup games, and then start to kind of reach out just to a small group that are more central and that have been longtime Nordecke partners, and just drive some more business that way. Or I'm also happy to expand that to other partners as well. And this could be another opportunity to recruit, and go from there, at least have at least more potential partners in the pipeline. And I'm happy to do either one. So yeah, that's my off the cuff thought process.
So, Ravi, the question that I have, and I guess this is an unknown right now, is how much do you anticipate that our partners would be coming to us and be like, it's World Cup time. We've been a long time partner with you. Please host stuff with us.
Yeah. So I'm trying to recall back to the Gold Cup, the last major tournament that the US men's team had. And not a whole lot of partners reached out to us to see if they could host an away watch party. That's not to say that they wouldn't be open to it, of course. But the outreach from them to us was not there. So yeah, that's so this would be more of an outreach from us to them. Yeah, Emily.
Sorry, hold on. Emily's got her hand up first.
Yep.
Yeah, and I remember Hugo saying that like he was open to having us do some watch parties there, and it
Yep.
might be a good option for like the morning ones because they do have a brunch and they're open earlier and later. So I know it's like the wonky time frame for those games. That might be a good option too.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because there was a few weeks just for the rest of the group. Emily, Courtney, and I had a meeting with the management group that oversees. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the Pine House, and then I think a few other places that they own, who are interested in doing away watch parties. So, and also there have been other restaurants that have reached out to us as well that they're obviously not a brewery, but they're more of a restaurant that would love to have a watch party. So this could be an opportunity for us to expand that and be able to procure them as Nordecke partners. So that's a good point, Emily.
So the other aspect of this I didn't
Sorry,
mention
hold on.
in
Sorry,
oh,
Norm, hold on one second. Brent and Colin both had their hands up too.
I think we're going to have to face the reality that we're going to be pretty low in the pecking order. Um, the club will be hosting an opening the pub and the plaza for games, and it's gonna draw a lot of the eyes and attention more than we can. And then American Outlaws have a local chapter. As far as anything related to driving business, I think that's absolutely something we should be doing. But I think we would run the risk of having our biggest opportunity to engage new soccer fans or soccer curious fans who are here for the World Cup, but may not know enough about Nordecke, where I think it might be more pertinent to donate, to dictate our resources towards a membership drive as opposed to watch parties, just because I think the budgeting that the team will have and the direct engagement that American Outlaws will get from US soccer will be difficult to work against. And I think we're gonna have an opportunity to, we'd be having an opportunity to solidify existing partnerships or an opportunity to do new member outreach. And I think if it comes down to 30 people at Seventh Sun versus, 4,000 people at the plaza for an afternoon game in June, we should probably set 10 at the plaza. Strictly speaking on the idea that the World Cup, the entire United States soccer organism from top to bottom is doing everything they can to try and capitalize on the eyes and the attention. And I think we've been doing a disservice to the ability to recruit new members and to expand our footprint if we didn't do some kind of membership drive and outreach to these people who will be bringing their kids and their families, maybe to stadium the first time, or maybe they purchase single tickets and they've been first on Nordecke, or they don't know what Nordecke is. And I think there's just a reality where we don't carry enough United States men's national team specific weight to throw around against the club and against the Outlaws. So,
Uh, I think there's room for both.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something about setting up a tent, don't need a couple of people for
Sure.
that tent. So there's still room to like do that and then have other people how want.
for sure.
I was actually gonna say, I feel like the World Cup could be, because of the massively increased engagement. I feel like it could be a good opportunity to maybe try another like Franklin's Gym takeover style event. Something that's a little larger where we're working with multiple people at the same time. And to give that a dry run to working able to during our season last time. And I think that would give us the ability to still work with AO Columbus and drive, use a little bit of their increased engagement, because they will get more engagement on this than we will. And to kind of leverage that for ourselves as well.
Sorry, Norm had his hand up too.
So first to Colin's point, I think that we need to question our assumptions here, right? We have a long history of the team hosting events at the plaza, and this is probably going to be the best, most well-attended period for that, but it has traditionally not been the huge success that they would like to present it as. I think AO Columbus has a long history of having success at those. And so when we're thinking about, where should our attention go? Where should we go? I think we should be looking around the entire city and not just one place, because I think it's too large of an interest to just end up in one place. And I don't think it's 4,000 at the plaza and 30 at Seventh Sun. The other thing is there's more games than just what the US is in. And it's a very diverse city, and there are places and times that we should be going. And we have supporters groups that may hold watch parties for games beyond the U.S. men's national team, and we should hold space for that as well and make sure that we're engaging our community where they are.
And I just want to echo a bit on Norm's point, and Colin, I understand where you're coming from. I think the way I look at it is like for the plaza, this is going to be more so. I think you're going to have the higher turnouts for obviously U.S. games, but there will be other games that folks are going to be interested in, and that's where we can certainly use that opportunity to leverage new partnerships and as well as, explore new partnerships and also even explore the opportunity as Brent mentioned about having like a Franklinton takeover and even partner with AO Columbus on that for certain US games as well. So yeah.
Robbie, you know that I am fully into a local part of the top of the watch party on the west side.
Absolutely.
So I started the conversation around partners, and that's part of this. And then the other part of this is you have a bunch of people who are going to be coming to the World Cup casually interested and may not have ever paid attention to the crew and are very interested and want to get engaged and want community around that. And that's something that we have to we aren't going to have the full answer today, right? This is the start of the conversation and thinking about it. And we're doing this, the day before the draw. And tomorrow we'll know a lot more information than we know today. But I think the intent is to start planning and thinking this through because this will take us months, not days to think through and plan out.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say like the US is only playing like 3 of 6 games in the World Cup, and there's like 104 total games. So there's definitely opportunities to post other supported groups of other teams and give them a place to congregate. I know I went to a lot of the watch parties last year, and like some teams you wouldn't expect, but they have a big price salads divisions. And getting into Jonathan meant somebody probably bought like 50 displays, they were all watching it.
I think you could go reach out to establish food support groups as well as just general or that number fit them, I think maybe there's a dozen, people that can help. A lot of others, they don't know. They're Ukrainian, maybe you don't know how to squat, part of it is helping me that they bring the passion for that team. We bring passion for soccer. I do think that Franklin can take over the people in this early stages, only about 6 games in a day. Yeah, we're going here for game 1, here for game 2, here for game 3.
Is there enough bars in close proximity that we could plan like a World Cup bar crawl day?
Can't
It's there in December, some shows of those stuff as far as you go out to see how we strap it.
definitely not.
Bar, you get that one too.
Important content.
Reading the Franklin thing, the Baja did not possibly just say, hey, closing down the whole street between Sweeties and Land Grant for the whole day. You have TV screens outside and bars showing just soccer all day, and people can come and go all day as they please to catch the game. But at the end part, just make it a whole soccer fiesta.
Yeah.
There's a park right around there as well, right? There's Gravity Park. Well, I mean, there's like an open patch of land on this.
Oh, behind COSI. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because I frequently dodge goose poop on the way to Nightlight walking through there.
I love the idea of like posting those United States to like a local restaurant
We're listening to 134, so that's like, eat your wine food while your glass fine.
All right, are we good to move on to the next point? Okay, so this is the first off season under the new staggered term for directors. So we'll be heading into an election season where the entire board is not up for election for the first time. So there'll be some directors up for election and some not. And so this is going to be mostly a point for Slack, but just to kind of talk about it and talk about it publicly. During the election process, we're going to need to form working groups around directors who are still going to be serving to plan preseason points. So, when we're talking about planning Christmas, which will come up, when we're talking about any post AGM feedback we get from our members, when we talk about, going into production for TIFO and that's normally, there's a lot of engagement around that and having to drive around that. That needs to be driven by working groups of the remaining directors who are serving for next season. And we haven't been here before, so just want to kind of talk about it briefly.
To be clear, ordered up the directors that are not, the positions that are not for election. Comms, match day operations, community travel. So that would be important.
Well, and Trent already said he's resigning, so based on
Either up, or this would be one where, back to Emily's bylaw thing, where the board could appoint someone because it's not up for elections.
That's, you would have to be appointed by the way the bylaws on. So.
Bethany, can you repeat that for the recording?
repeat what I said or repeat what Brent said?
What Brent and Brad said.
So the ones not up for reelection is comms, match day operations, community, and travel. But Trent has said that he's not going to finish out his term, so the match operations position is open for appointment.
And along with the working group, I think it is important for those directors who will be termed out, and not obvious, who will be termed out to prepare transition documents, along with spending time with whoever the new director will be to get him or her or them onboarded, will be critical. So.
And along those lines, for directors who are not up for election, but will be up for election next year, if you don't have a deputy, it's a good season to recruit and get that sorted out. And that's true of even the elected positions that will be coming in. But this is also a time of year we don't talk about as much where deputies step aside and we're rebuilding the entire working group going into a new season, and that's also of importance.
Everybody that uses it, that's great.
Should not to rehash this, but should we make
Good evening. Families, come join us in the first floor meeting room for family story time, starting in 8 minutes. And
Sorry, guys, we gotta go.
I think that's really jacked.
Yeah.
We have several positions that we tried to find deputies and were unsuccessful, so that you're left in a position where you're violating the bylaws.
Right.
Even though you're trying to do that, so I think adding that as a requirement is really challenging. It should be strongly encouraged.
With that, went to break, then it would be a second, whether it be the ratio in there or make it a second. Maybe that's a big time, also with them, you don't for a fact, and then we would find people that go into that. It's easy.
So I apologize if I'm rehashing something because obviously I'm not hearing 100% of everything, but
Even 6 minutes, that's the only important thing you might have.
That's right. It's
well, I heard that loud and clear. So along the lines of getting people involved, deputies, etc., I think one positive of this being the first off season with this kind of rolling transition period is you can go into AGM and be very transparent about that. Hey, we're planning for the 2026 season. We need people to get involved, not just on the elected level, but on the deputy level. Here are the ones that are carrying over. And when we go into AGM to advertise those, right? Um, because when the entire board's been up for election, that's kind of been a lot of the focus, along with the feedback that we get from the membership. But this can be a way that we can kind of solicit very directly our broader segment of our membership. Okay. I'm gonna knock off two of these real quick just so that my spreadsheet look or my agenda looks a little more clear. I'll feel better. So the general points that Courtney had were all around off-season things we need to do. And some of these are very nuts and bolts and things that we can be doing as we're planning for 2026. And two of them are game day related and creative related. The easiest of which to talk about is that we need to do a full inventory of our game day banners and look for ones that need to be retired either through heavy use and have sustained damage over several seasons and need to be retired, or ones that need to be retired because we no longer have the player on roster. And so, or, in some cases, the manager on roster. So we'll, that's something that we probably want to do in the December, January range before we're gearing up too hard for Christmas, but it's something that is going to be important to kind of line up and get ahead of the eight ball on so we're not entering the season and reacting to everything. We want to be a little proactive if we can help it. So I'll pause there for a comment.
Getting getting the banners out of the closet at some point next week, and once I know when clearance to do that, we'll get some dates scheduled next week to kind of sort through and see what we got to do. But yeah, the work of repairing and or replacing the thing will probably be in January. So yeah, 2 days next week to kind of sort through and look at everything, and then 4 hours in January.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna, that's kind of along the lines of what I was talking about, what I wanted to talk about, is giving into the closet sometime next week to just, we try to, the time, like, it's gonna be a time, this is. But in order to just kind of get some post and go through the things.
Good evening. Families, come join us in the first floor meeting room for family story time, starting in 3 minutes. See you there.
Yeah, just to be able to kind of get that, just to get on there.
So we do advertise we're one massive family, so perhaps you guys should be gearing up to go out into the story time there.
Bring all of that. It's probably that space, etc.
Those are separated into a closet.
I didn't know where they were, I just knew they were there somewhere. That's just like.
And I suppose I should say doesn't just have to be banners. Like we have some other game day, we have obviously there will be some drum maintenance in the off season. Ravi's favorite noise, or not Ravi, Paco's favorite noisemaker is in the closet and might need some, I does need some love. It needs some wood glue for sure. Yeah.
It's getting some love.
Okay. So the second point, and this is actually the first point on the list we're now getting to, is the concept of a game day Bible. So this is something I'd raised to Courtney a while back as like a seedling of an idea. And basically it's that we have a lot of institutional memory that are trapped in brains, mine included. And that the more that we can get it onto paper, the better it is the easier it's going to be to transition match day into the future, right? So future directors, et cetera, to be able to say, here's how run of show normally works, here's how banners work, here are the banners that have traditionally gone up in these places. All the kind of institutional memory that gets locked in people's heads and then doesn't make it places. That one of the off-season projects can be to kind of, and this is a lot of this is I need to write stuff down instead of it being trapped in my head. And that's true for a lot of people who have been longtime volunteers to match day activities and initiatives is, um, as we continue to bring new people into the fold, we need a way to like disseminate that information because I feel like too often it's been locked behind, does it come to the top of my mind? And that's not a great place to be. So that's a hope for the off season is to run through, run a show, chants, ordering of chants, how setup works, banners, all of that stuff into a unified place so that the match day directors can hand it from one to the next and even particular board members to also get up to speed.
It would also be good to have some form of highlights of the speed, especially of especially it's something that like if they've ever said, we will always let you in at 9 a.m. We should write that down. I don't think they've ever said that, but if they did, we should write that down so somebody in 3 years knows that that was said.
Believe me, I always want to go in at 9 a.m. And if we're in at noon, I've been in a foul mood for every noon setup. Okay. Any other comments on this before I move on to merch? Okay, so the last thing is 2026 merchandise, which is that Brad is term limited, I believe. I think I'm correct on that.
Great, yep.
So we'll be transitioning to a new merch director, and we have a bunch of people up for election. And so, because of the where that's sitting, it puts us in a tough spot. So one of the thoughts is to put together a working team with Brad and with a couple other of the continuing board members to kind of transition that information and plan out the 2026 merch package. And to kind of put together a calendar around all that, which is find a way to create that transition because we don't want to be in a position where we're waiting too late. And also we want to make sure that institutional memory is preserved on all of that. So that's kind of the thought there. I'll defer a bit to what Brad has to say on the subject and open up for discussion, but that's the intent with that point.
Yep, so I have an email going out to Subco tomorrow to get the process started for this. I've gone through feedback from the mid-season surveys that the comms team put out as far as what individuals would like to see in the merchandise kits for next year. Again, staying with the 3 tiers, the thought is to have it all ready to go and everything launched by mid to late January. That way we've got it there ahead of time. Launching in order to have the funds to pay for the merch, so it's not a big expense upfront for it all. You can have the 3 tiers and include a new option this year of buying like a lower tier, and then once you see the merch that's out there, whatever, having the option to upgrade to the additional one to just be buying the extra merchandise available in the other tiers, if they wanted, and then still working on this holiday gift card on kind of how to put that out for people that may want to give the gift of a membership for next season when it comes to the holidays. But fully plan on, as Colin mentioned in the last meeting and stuff, and talking, that it'd be a good idea of getting ahead of the merchandise and getting it launched as soon as possible and getting it ordered before the Chinese New Year, which is February 17th. So getting it ordered and getting it started in production so we have it before the new year or as close to after that Chinese New Year as possible to get it sent out.
So the club membership at a different price than a full membership?
Yes, the kids club is a different price. I believe it is currently at somewhere in the $20 to $30 range. Kids club.
We should have. Or buy like the whole family, 2 kids, $2. Right, we discussed it, but that's about what we get it for. Stock, when it's like sale, is that something that you think you might want to do like your coordinator as director? I think that's something that you want to.
It's definitely something that we can look into.
Yeah.
It's just I just asked for assistance to go through and make sure that we double check all the inventory that's there. Take all of this year's merchandise, take the photos, get our inventory, put them up on the website. So that way if people want to buy individual items, make sure we've got everything listed on the website for sale. You kind of go through there and then, hey, yeah, you can do not really a fire sale, but like you said, kind of a clearance sale, or hey, buy all the merch so we can clear out and make room for next year's stuff.
So it sounds like you're seeing this as like an online sale, and I don't know if we discussed the idea of like setting up shop at one of our partners if we're able to, and just bringing what we can, and like t-shirts, $8, accessories, $5,
The difficulty with that is the limited sizes that we have of things, that the online just kind of seems the best option based on limited sizes and whatnot. But that's not to say that we can't say, hey, for this period of time, every t-shirt is this price. Every trinket or every little miscellaneous item is this price. If it's under this category, this is what it's discounted down to. Okay, cool. But there are definitely ways to make that happen. I'm all for trying to have one in person, but it's just a matter of the limited sizes and trying to transport everything. That's all.
So real quick before I go to Melanie's question, is there a big enough turnout at AGM to make sense to have some stuff there for people to buy?
On average, there's maybe 15, 20 people at
Okay.
AGM.
Sure. Okay.
It's a little bit cheaper to buy online.
That might be a draw for people to actually come to the AGM, though.
That's true.
I tell everybody, hey, if you go to ADM, then get all our shirts for $5, please. Or whatever you want to do, just something like that. Here's a sweet deal. There are like 100 only sizes in Blackout Galaxy 2008.
There are so many, it was for a while there when, if y'all remember back to when the stadium first opened and the crew had that block party.
Yeah.
Outside, we had a tent set up there and we hauled everything down from the space and set it up there. That if you bought something, we gave you a free Blackout the Galaxy. Just to try to get rid of them. Because it was literally, there was 3 boxes of this size, 3 of this size. At that one point, I was like, who wants a free t-shirt?
Yeah.
We were just kind of passing out those Blackout the Galaxy shirts.
Along those lines, I'd like to point out that mugs come in any size or in every size.
They do, and with the mugs,
How about a t-shirt canvas, just for really hard ceramic mugs?
with the mugs, I would really love to, and this may be something that gets passed on to the next director. Find an opportunity at a watch party to partner with the brewery, and you take the mugs there, and there's a specialty cocktail for that night made in the mug, and you pay whatever it is for it, and then if you come to get it refilled, it's whatever half off the refill if you bring the mug up. It gets the mugs out of the way. 2, it drives alcohol sales or alcohol or drink sales at the bar, but also kind of if someone comes and not a soccer fan, they're like, oh, that's a cool mug. Let me buy a drink to go with it. It's a talking point as well.
Hold on, 5 times. It's 3rd week of February, so.
A lot of coffee shops also have like consignment ways with products for different people. You might be a comic and you may have seen put some of those mugs in there and see what be able to sell.
That's a good time to see like what organizations might be looking for like sign option. Aspects that you could put together, support some monies.
And along the lines, I know I was contacted before school started, by someone working with the Heritage City Schools for all their teachers, and we don't need the moms. So for all the teachers and get that as well. That moves 85 mugs. Perfect.
Wait, how many mugs do we have?
There are 15 boxes, 24 mugs in each box left.
30 months.
So just thinking out loud, but we joke about the mugs. And if you're a hardcore member of the Nordecke, you have a mug somewhere. However, that's a fantastic World Cup watch party raffle gift or something,
I know when we were doing the Nordecke bingo, a lot of bingo didn't got a mug. So for like 8 weeks in a row, we were giving mugs out.
Okay, so let me go back to Melanie real quick.
Hi guys. Okay, sorry. I missed my opportunity. I didn't know how to raise my hand on the Zoom app because I'm apparently inept. But I had a question for you, Brad, on the kids club. I know it's been quite some time and we have all of from what I understand is we have all of the actual physical merchandise in hand. Is there any way to maybe launch that before 2026 memberships? Just 1, as a Christmas present potential for kids, and 2, to kind of buffer or like get some funds in the accounts to buy the 2026 merch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have no issue with that, and I know when we were talking about, you had expressed interest in helping with it, you kind of get it launched and everything, so I would love to, if it's still there, I would love to work with you on trying to get this launched here relatively soon, since we have everything now, and definitely, like you said, find ways to generate that revenue in the slow time here, as well as draw interest for the upcoming season.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm definitely willing to help with whatever you need. I know there were some issues or potential concerns with like the children's privacy, so I did look into the Children's Online Privacy Act and kind of tried to read up on that. It seems pretty straightforward, so whatever you need from me to get that launched and going, I can start sharing that. pretty much all of my mom's groups are going to be great people to share that with, because everyone's asking for Christmas ideas for their kids right now. So, I mean, if we can hammer it out and, you know.
Sure. Can we touch base early next week and we'll get it figured out?
Yeah, that works for me. Just send me a message. I think you have my info, so we'll figure it out. But sounds good.
Colin?
This is this adjacent related, but since we are here and we already know this is schedule, I think we don't need to at least discuss our potential for like meeting nights and what we're doing. Maybe we're gonna watch things club. We don't know what the 12 will be doing percent, but if you want to piggyback off that, or if it's Capitals or it's Tivo or it's complete a two-step thing, and we're going to all something like that. We have facilities we get a hold on. In planning about it, that's one way. It's just not staff the schedule. Yeah. I still think that the best thing that they could ever do is to release all of the statistics and not find it.
No, to that point, I'm all for it, all working toward, with the
Yes,
different, yes, all for working with the different directors and doing that. I would love to have like a kids take over and just find a way to make it work with everybody, to make sure it's safe and that we can do it in a way that makes sense. Maybe it's not the right word, but in a way that fosters the growth of the organization. Sure.
Yeah. Just something that is like low to no cost, and you think I was going for that the upsell.
Like, the speed benefit for this thing be or norm. But I'm just gonna throw it out there, like, we had talked about things like this in the past, and one thing we want to be careful of is making some of the different functions from Nordecke a product. And that like you now by buying kids home membership, you now purchase the rights to capo or a jumper for a match or whatever. There's some downsides to those kinds of things. That kind of is past
Yeah, that was a conversation at the time, a couple of times history, we started a conversation. When I used to be. But I think, obviously any sort of video that we could and really the future of organizational future of one. Creating experience in a way that is meaningful and safe. It's a little weird, obviously. Countless final. Well, it's yeah, just the yeah, scary, but you can bring some a little bit into that. And given the attitude, you said, just a little bit, one of the really one of the things that really kind of hampered a lot of that kind of from the confidence that you are. So now that the position of the position of the election, still there's supposed to be this to some sort of condition,
And I think the whole sound point when I first got it up was I was trying to think of kind of benefits of being kind of in the Nordecke Kids Club, as it is not many of our partners that kind of are kids friendly at this point. So I was trying to find ways that would mean something to the kids that would be different from their parents' mindset that they might have. They could be like, oh, this is mine only, my parents can't. That's kind of where I was going with it. I was trying to find kid specific or kid centered benefits to it. Now that we've got the public partners on board, with it.
Rick had an idea too on Zoom.
Hey, so as we're sitting here talking about it, one thing I thought of would be kind of cool to get some of our TIFO artists together and maybe do some sort of like coloring book, like TIFO design coloring book, maybe past ones or just, cool ideas.
Okay, that's awesome. I like it.
We can train the next generation of TIFO painters.
And recruit for the current.
I have the reflection of rejecting, game day graphics and graphics analysis on the list. I need to do that.
That is great.
What about branding probably for some of the parents, like this side of it, we're gonna not to these people and then market that. Not to say kids are welcome to it, that day, kids. Come out and get covered in paint. Yeah, hopefully some of it will end up on the beach. Get out of my.
All right. In the spirit of realizing that it is 7:20 p.m., let's try and move through some more of this. Norm, was there anything else on Courtney's that we needed to go over? I think the only thing we haven't overly touched on was Cruisemas.
Sure. Cruisemas is March 7th. Tell your friends. That concludes chair business unless, there's a question from Emily.
But is there, sorry, you can see other things. Is there, I know the last 2 years we've kind of done the Christmas Eve concert. Is there any interest from this board of continuing that, or is that something that we don't want to partake in?
I think there's been some discussion about finding a way to adapt to the night before the event to going to be or something. It's like it's small size. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't also do that. But for
relatively close to even, or maybe a couple of hundred here and there.
but I think there's better ways for us to get them to go for a season.
That didn't come through for me. What was the question Brad had?
Sorry. Brad was asking if the board has any interest in doing the Christmas Eve concert event again. That's been done the last few years. Brent said that there may be some interest in trying to make the Christmas Eve event something that may appeal to a wider group of people rather than the concert, or maybe the concert and something else. So, Emily's had her hand up for a while.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about Christmas because I had talked to Courtney about it, and I think we were just like trying to brainstorm about what that looks like. Just knowing that this past year working with the front office was a little bit difficult, and I feel like maybe we could have a discussion about moving away from actually being involved with the front office and just doing it ourselves independently. I feel like we could easily do that without some of the roadblocks that we've gotten in the past.
Just to ask a clarifying question, are we talking about particular events? Like, are you thinking Sunrise Toast or there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Sunrise Toast. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Yeah.
One roadblock is been clear, but maybe it's a better roadblock.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Was there a question?
No, Colin and Brent were just having unnecessary sarcastic
Oh,
discussions.
got it. No, just because like last year, like Ty was working with us to do the champagne, but he had some difficulties with that, and it just kind of like led some things to snowball for me and planning wise, and also communicating with actually getting the person who was doing the toast. So I feel like if we can just do that ourselves, if nobody has a problem with that, then I mean, not like we would still do it down at the stadium and like on the steps, but I don't know, like if anyone has anything else to add to that part.
So, oh, go ahead, Norm. I'll wait till you're
Yeah.
done.
So I think there's actually an opportunity here, similar to what Emily is saying. There has been during the last meeting we had at the front office a desire for us to work more directly with people we need things from and not necessarily always going to the front office, which I think is something that works well. We have um, a new head of president of the team, etc. So I think there's not as much institutional memory going into Christmas, right? And we've been told that it's a busy World Cup year, and I think that gives us an opportunity to use that as a jumping off point to say, ask directly for what we need, but don't ask for what we don't, you know.
I think with regards to Sunrise Toast, I think the one thing that the crew front office has provided just historically has been just a champagne, which for about 60 or so people that we have, and I mean it could be quite a bit of cost savings for us, but that's really like the biggest expense that they provide. I think that with I think with I don't know if Mary Shepros now the new person that we'll have to be interacting with. Okay, so I don't know like how how different or open she would be with that relative to the previous person who was there. So and obviously with Ty, I think I just saw that he was transitioning away. I don't know how much more what kind of support. What's that?
We hadn't broke that news yet. I don't
Oh,
know
sorry.
if it's posted.
Oops, sorry. But amidst all that, I don't know how that will go. So I was my way of thinking of it is just maybe just kind of wait and see. But I'm also I just want to just bring that out to the group.
With it being on the skating route, there might be people or insurance companies that they have to provide the news. So if they can try giving it anything, ask them.
Emily, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had to provide the champagne this last year.
Yeah, actually, it was my personal champagne that we had bought
Oh,
for,
okay.
for tailgate because Ty was late with it and he didn't have enough. So,
I stand corrected.
yeah, so we use a significant amount of hours for that. So that's why I feel like, I mean, if we're just going to do that ourselves anyways, then that might just be the way to go.
No, I stand corrected then.
Everyone's levy restaurants. So you can go there.
That's what I was thinking, it's like, are we allowed to bring?
On the steps, in front of those steps, it's in the door, should be fine.
Yeah.
It's not in the grounds, secure area. It's the first thing to know.
And I think Upper 90 podcast will probably do their crazy post of run. If anybody wants to do that.
Right, did you have any ideas for like a frequency or these more so than speaking?
More general, I don't have any specific ideas, but it was just, yeah, how do we engage more people on the night before?
So just one thing on as it relates to Christmas Eve. I know earlier this year when we had it, Brian Klein actually helped organize and reached out to a lot of the bands. And with the grateful support of Endeavor for sponsoring the event, it allowed us to allowed us to reallocate a lot of the money that we would have had to spend for the bands and for the venue booking to go towards Chris. So that was a big thing. So I mean, certainly a band, if we want to continue that and start looking for sponsors, we can. I would also say that it could also be an opportunity for us to just make it a little bit more of a different setup where we just have a massive gathering at either Endeavor or Land Grant or anywhere else to just have like a big party before.
Okay, so if that wraps up the discussion around Cruisemas, obviously this is all beginning point for all the points gone. That will at 1 hour and 29 minutes wrap up the chairperson updates for today's meeting.
Thanks, Norm. Great job. All right. So next is comms.
I have an agenda update that I'm just gonna share, which is that, I don't know the exact date, but the comm scene became aware of an incident that involved one of our, volunteers, multiple incidents in which a volunteer was destroying the property. That volunteer has since, been spoken to by Nordecke leadership that will not be able to volunteer in the capacity for Nordecke going forward. I do just want to provide that update. Apologize for the delay. I will be sharing more specific details regarding the dates of the incidents, the dates of the conversations, same time, on Slack, in the future, but just wanted to provide here that there was a situation, there were multiple incidents in which that property was destroyed, and that was since been handled by the leadership. Person is no longer a volunteer as part of our organization. So.
Next is community.
I don't really have a whole lot to update on. I plan to do a lot more of the same next year. I do have a couple more community partners to work with that are more kid specific. So I'm excited to have found those because I know that that was something that people had asked for. One's an adaptive soccer team, and then another is a food bank that allows younger kids. So that'll be will be good for families that have asked for that, and also can probably fold that into the kids club. So, but still working on some other things too to add on to that. But that's what I have for now.
Okay. Next is creative.
Yeah, nothing outside of what we talked about earlier. Yeah, there's nothing.
Game day.
Just really thankful for the last. Just feedback from the game. Well, that's really positive. I always seem to rain on persons stuff, but Curtis really did really got this job with the bus station. A lot of it's a lot of folks, the person in the bus and just have a 50% of it. You know, we always really show up, or since the obviously and you know, tagging playoffs and everything, but just in the that. It's really phenomenal. Everybody really team the biggest playoff home isn't getting just really thankful for everybody that showed up, they did a home tour, they did
But the market is great. On the board, not the one.
Next is merch.
Not too much outside of right update. Brent, I'd like to work with you on something I've been kind of thinking around in my head for a while. Is come up with like a T-field trading card, not like baseball card or something, have a picture of the T on the front and then a story on the back and maybe written by the artist and kind of the things behind it. I don't know if there's a repository out there of the images and the artists that we can reach out to. I know there's been demand out there that people have asked about the different people, what's the story behind it, or the artwork, whatever, I think it's be something different. And unique that I haven't seen other supported things do when it comes to their tifos and everything. So, yeah, I would, definitely something that I'd love to work with you on, to see what we can come up with and get out there.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we'll have to work on with the off season, it's, creating some kind of agreement that we can go from we work with an artist that allows us to do things like that. Because right now we don't have that in place. So it's supposed to be instead, we do it and then we do something different. Hey, can you do this with your design? So going forward, that but for the ones that we've already done, track that we have the entities of everything up to the website and we need to pay. So even given the website, people so we need to get the more recent ones on there, but we have those images on there. So we just go back and exact that and go to the artist was.
So I really like, the most part is trying to be more involved in the open topics. I don't know if they have any capability for these products, or they mostly sell them.
If you have contact with them,
My own project is super interested in Discord and
the most part, I will use that and kind of reach out to them and see.
if they have the ability to produce like a phone, somebody more of a type of police on your house, something on stuff.
I was looking at tops, but it just depends on the quantity we order. Obviously, the more we order, the larger price we get. So it's about what areas are out there and whatnot. Also working on a couple winter items, hoodies preferably, and possibly get money to it too. It's kind of waiting to see what's out there and what kind of designs come back to it.
Okay. Next is partnerships.
Yeah, I think the only updates I have is that I've created the 2026 full season away and home calendar for tailgate and away watch parties. I have not done any outreach yet. I'm going to leave that up to the new director, whoever will be elected and take that over. As I kind of alluded to earlier, I am termed out after this year, and I do want to thank all of you who have been so supportive of me throughout the past 3 years, and also for being such great people to be around. And also, I want to thank our partners as well, who have been absolutely amazing and so supportive of Nordecke and what we stand for, and supporting not only just the members, but also our community partners who do so much for Columbus. So thank you guys. And of course, I'll have more to say at AGM whenever we get that scheduled.
Okay. Does anyone have any updates from Curtis on travel? I'm guessing not because off season, but.
A lot of people went down since then. They learned to play again for whatever reason. They left it out. So 2015.
All right, next section is new business. The first item on there was something that Emily had asked for, which is the board email system.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else is not super, I don't really care for it, but I don't know that there's any, I don't know what a different option is, so I'm just putting that out there.
I think most any other options are gonna require pay.
Um,
Yeah, I know that while the organization is not a 501(c)(3), there are still opportunities for free or discounted accounts with Google Workspace. I'm not sure about Microsoft Outlook, but with Workspace, they do offer discounts for nonprofits and other organizations. And I think something like Google Workspace would be very beneficial to the organization because one, it creates a drive where everything can be uploaded, which right now I'm using my personal Google Drive for everything related to the secretary and some of the comm stuff as well. It would also allow the webmaster or whoever is um, overseeing the IT area of the organization to set protocols for emails and retention and data security, all that sort of stuff that I think is something that we should look at being more considerate of going forward. Brian is not on the call now. Gotcha.
It looks like, yeah, there were more people to untitled those opposed to. So. But the form is not in the page.
Yeah, I don't think it would be too difficult because, like, for example, my work website, I built it through GoDaddy and we have contact forms on it, and I've changed them periodically to different email addresses depending on.
Start with the systems.
Right.
So, you know, that's.
Yeah, and that's something that because we own the domain, like we would be able to utilize that with Google as well. So even if we were to switch to Google, it could still be at nordecke.com. So. Mhm.
That's like our.
Web hosting premium sounds exactly like what GoDaddy calls it. So I'm curious if our hosting is through is AWS. Okay. Norm, you had your hand up.
Yeah, this is for Brent, which is I don't know if it's been asked recently with ISC, but I kind of wonder if there is a widely used version around the MLS community, or if different supporters groups have different ways of handling this that can maybe give us ideas on how to approach it.
He asked if you're referencing specifically the email setup.
Yes.
I can ask, I'm. Based on conversations that have in the past, I would assume there's not really a general consensus on that, because it's so drastically different in size and setup. But I'm happy to ask and see if there's still this better.
Okay. Was there any other input or discussion with regard to the email system. I mean, if yeah,
It does exist. It is as user friendly as what type of sort of cereal box. The website is not. No, even the phone, even the media side. It's not good.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's outside of the bounds of my position, but I'm willing to reach out to Google and see what I can find out about it if people are interested in that.
I can leave you our incorporation documents. That's required, because I tell you, so I go like 10,000 from.
If there's nothing else with email, next would be 2026 elections. Colin and I are going to be talking after the meeting to get some of that stuff going. So we should hopefully be able to get nominations and everything up on the websites well within the required time frame. So and then the last item is the AGM for January. I'm trying to schedule a date for that.
Bethany, once you know the date, let me know. I'm happy to reach out to Seven Sun to see what their availability is for that date, as well as other days surrounding that particular date.
Okay.
Okay. That was the first thing. Second thing, I forgot to do this at my last on my earlier go around, but Yabba Dabba Crew.
Well, it's a good thing that you don't have the college football playoffs.
Ah,
Yikes.
yeah. We'll see. We'll see how you guys do. We'll see how you guys do.
So we have to have the ballot ready by the 9th. And if we want, do we want January 9th? Yeah, no, based on the timeline that Brad gave, we need to have the declaration period begin around December 15th. But we'll have to look through more thoroughly in order to meet that timeline, because is the cure period including that January 9th deadline, or the cure period needs to happen?
But they have the ballot up there.
Right.
There was, then there was that week cure time.
Right.
And then after that cure time, there was 2 weeks of election.
Right. Okay. But so the cure period does not have to end before the 9th. We just have to have the initial declaration period done and the initial ballot. The final ballot. So then the cure period would have to be done before the 9th. Okay. Yeah, I know the declarations have to be by the 1st. So probably do the same.
So based on last year, it was declaration was 12/16 to 1/1. Cure period from 1/2 to 1/9. And voting from 1/9 to 1/19.
Yeah.
That policy, something that all stuff that people thinking about from while people are doing something.
No, I mean, if we're going to be starting the declaration period within the next 11 days, 12 days, I don't think it's a bad idea for us to at least get something out on comm saying like, hey, declarations are going to be open soon. If you want to start thinking, these are positions that are going to be available. Yes, hate watch. Brad, can you tell me the dates again real quick? I'm sorry, I wasn't typing fast enough.
Based on last year's schedule, the dates for the declaration period was December 16th through January 1st.
Yep.
The cure period was January 2nd to January 9th. And the voting was from January 9th to the 19th.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, so back to AGM. Is there any particular day of the week that is typically better for people?
I think for Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've had AGM usually on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Correct, because usually a Sunday afternoon, because this was a longer thing than the night out or whatever. It gave a chance for those that were running for a spot to talk about themselves, say why they were running and why people should vote for them. And the outgoing director gets to talk about the season wrap up.
Okay. So if that's the case, we would want to look at either January 4th or January 11th. The 4th would be during the cure period. Most likely the 11th would be most likely around the time voting is beginning.
If it doesn't happen. There's no.
That's true. Okay.
I would almost put it kind of closer to when the voting starts.
Okay.
That way it's kind of things are solidified kind of in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of that last that's what I'm looking for. I've done like sales pitch for the individuals that are running.
Yeah. So I think January 11th would probably be the best day for that then. Because I think the 18th is going to be too close to the end of voting. Well, and also I worry about the 4th being most likely the last day of winter break for a lot of people before the kids go back to school the next day. Yeah. Must be nice. Okay, so as an alternate. Okay.
And Bethany, I think Norm and Emily have their hands raised. I don't know who was
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry. I was too busy talking. Emily, you want to go ahead, or Norm? Doesn't matter.
I'm just trying to be helpful in trying to figure out a date because I'm looking at the bylaws, and the bylaws say there's two things that it says. It says elections must be held at the AGM of the members, but then it also says, like, not point 5, it says following the cure period, the secretary shall publish the final ballot prior to the AGM, but no later than January 9th. So I don't know if that makes a difference in when we schedule the AGM.
I don't know if the voting overly matters because we do the voting electronically, not in person.
Right. Voting. When it was put in there, to vote at AGM, that was when before kind of the online voting thing happened. And saying voting should start after AGM. That's kind of how it was being interpreted in the most recent bylaws.
So at the AGM, we should have the official ballot published, and then people would be able to vote then?
Yep, so it would be like if you have AGM on the 11th, that's kind of the official ballot, and then voting would open on the 12th. And go for whatever agreed upon period.
If you're following this, then I think you have to. Now it has to be ready to go. So I don't know we start. The ballot has to be published prior to the AGM, but no later than the 9th, which means that the AGM has to be voted.
Not necessarily.
That's the only way to follow. That's the only way to follow that ballot. Prior to the. Wow.
Doesn't. Because like it's prior to the AGM, so if the AGM is the 10th, publish it on the 9th, so you still have to go to the requirements. I think that section is a lot of work with federally bylaws.
To that point, I think as long as you have the ballot by the 9th, it's all within the specification of the bylaws.
Yeah. I think that makes sense, and I don't think that there would be too much issue with that. So, I would say, yeah, Ravi, if you can reach out to Seventh Son and see if January 11th is an option. If not, then January 10th would be backup.
Okay, yeah, I'll reach out I'll reach out.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. When would the national championship be?
The 19th of
Okay.
January.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I don't want us trying to set it up and then suddenly.
However, semifinals are scheduled for January 8th and January 9th. So I don't,
Okay.
Ravi might have opinions about that, I'm not sure.
No, no opinions. No opinions, sadly.
Okay. One other thing, because it does seem like there should be, and this is something we can take to Slack, but it does seem like maybe we should schedule a separate meeting to discuss some of the bylaws and have people prepared to discuss what they think are issues and what things need updated. Just to kind of hash it out in person on Zoom, whatever it is, rather than whatever it is that we're doing right now. What? I'm not saying it's not productive, but we're not moving forward anything. We're just saying this is effed up. This is effed up.
I agree. I think it's definitely not to schedule going into like working sessions.
Yeah.
On that package. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Like
Yeah.
that kind of be the new board kind of thing to work on after the elections.
I think that's smart because with the holidays and elections, anyhow, it's a lot to add on to the current board's plate.
Bylaws. I think it could be worthwhile to have one with the current board who has spent time looking at this document. And knows the issues so that we can really maybe what you're saying about like we're deciding this is that step but that's a big starting point for something like this.
Right.
So having a meeting where we go through it like that. Get some sense. Could be really helpful, and then we will then take that list and see whether or not they agree, they can add anything, that kind of thing, and then figure out that.
I would also suggest, to the individuals that worked on bylaw changes. To get there, and the goods and the pros and cons, the kind of the ups and downs, to talk about the struggles they went through. Trying to get it together.
Well, if there is nothing else, it is 7:56.
Hold on.
No, Norm.
I've
You
had my
spoke for an
hand up.
hour and 29 minutes already.
I had my hand up.
Okay.
Just real quick. So for last year's AGM, there was, I think, pre-registration, and part of that was because the 23 into 24 off season, there was a lot of interest in AGM. And I'm just thinking out loud if we should have some sort of registration so we have an idea ahead of time what level of interest we have. I'm not like it's probably going to be similar to 24, but I don't want to assume that outright before we have any information.
But also like registration out there because I think Nordecke are blocking first round for those that in order as a way to drive and get it to the go right. Hey, come in first drink something like that. Your point, Norm, yes, there is, you would have the ability to just take that form for previous years and replicate it. And then have that, to get a general idea of the number of individuals coming. I think if we do that, so the registration is 10 or 15 people, these months. Okay, but you guys register, that's fine. Some people aren't like, oh, I didn't register, it's too late now. If it's 200, you can't be right. I don't know, at one point we did the registration because it was held at Seventh Sun in their downstairs space, which had a capacity limit. That's when it was split into two different sessions. Because there was 60 some, or 60, 70 people signed up, and had to split into two different sessions to stay within the capacity. Last year we opened the upper part, where I don't believe there was too much of a capacity. I know I want you one more thing out. Yeah, come on, man. You can build 3 more meetings. One more.
Wait, okay, now we're gonna have Nordecke family reading.
One more.
No, I don't think he actually has anything.
So, I brought up with, Chris. But, you know, I know the first team, they do, they bought the flags for the players, yes, and they were good. I would like to do just something similar to the team. I don't know if the team will foot the bill for flags for them, but if they don't, with the board, we can put for the flags.
Yes, you start with passing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're looking at like one, two, these sorts of stuff.
I don't know how this school company, so. We never fully got into this level about the last 7 years we had just more so this. You never realized it. That was just what we were told, but we were told, but it's not necessarily we never really sought the clarity on the origin of the flags because the flags. If we get to that level of the conversation, what exists now is what exists flags and they set them up themselves, right? And so, are you okay with that kind of right concept? Yeah. Well, whatever. I see the post says. That's not the way. It's awfully, or something.
Okay, is there anything else? If not, I will stop the recording. Nope.